Yes, I said it. Oh my goodness, Tony, say it ain't so. You didn't just say Ben Hogan is bad. Well, yes and no. Obviously, we know Ben Hogan, the player, who is an extremely good athlete, extremely good golfer, and made a legend for himself. So who am I to critique his swing? His swing was phenomenal for him. Now, as you all may know, Ben Hogan wrote his 5 fundamentals. Some call it his 5 secrets. He's even got books made from the 5 secrets to decipher what the 5 secrets mean. So we're hearing his secrets in the 3rd or 4th generation. Some things could be lost in translation. There are so many books out there. Search for the Perfect Swing, PGA Teaching Manual. It's just too much information out there. But what does it all mean? Instead, you should be reading books like Chance. It talks about probability, randomness, laws of unions, subjective probability, and randomness. Well, it doesn't sound much like golf, but basically, this is what the golf swing is. It's all about chance. Today, we're going to take a look at 2 people. We're going to look at Mr. Ben Hogan, the legendary Ben Hogan, and we're going to look at Davis Thompson, who just won the PGA Tour event last week, shooting unbelievable rounds in the low 60s 4 days in a row. They're just so good. But they're all good in a unique manner. The reason why I chose these is we have one that's a flat swinger, one that's a steep swinger. We're going to look at a few things, but most importantly, I want you to realize by the end of this video to not follow any of them, because they are not you and you're not them. And don't forget our 3,000 subscriber giveaway. Comment down below 3,000 or bust and you will be entered to win an online lesson with me, and together I'll help you get your goals in line. But enough of that, let's go figure out why you shouldn't swing like anybody. And before we get started with that video, thank you for those on the screen who support this channel. If you wish to support us, membership starts at 99 cents every 30 days, and that helps go to the Heal the Hood children in Cape Flats, South Africa. We also give online lessons. Info is down below. And lastly, if you know a golfer in your life that could benefit from this channel, please share this channel as we're looking to grow and grow the knowledge to you. Thank you and enjoy the video. Okay, we have Davis Thompson on the right side, Ben Hogan on the left side. Obviously 2 very good golfers, but 2 uniquely different swings. Ben Hogan on the left side had a flatter motion, where Davis Thompson on the right side had a steeper motion. And the way their golf swings evolved stemmed from their youth, but also the way their bodies are built. We have somebody on the right side who is capable of getting positions that probably Ben Hogan was not, and vice versa. Golf equipment does play a part as well, but we're going to look at why these 2 swings are different, but they're also able to hit the ball so phenomenal, enough so to win multiple times on the PGA Tour. And the reason we're starting this from the top of the swing and we're only going to look at impacts is how they differ in that little motion and from the top of their swing down. Now, the top of the swing positions, we can see some changes, and we're going to look at angles for a second here. There's the top of Ben Hogan's shoulder turn, and it is pretty close to 90 degrees, where we have Thompson on the right side with a much wider shoulder turn. And why is this important? Because we look at the position of the club. So a lot more upper body rotation. The hips do look about the same. It's hard to tell with Hogan's sweater, but we see a lot more coil on the right side. And the coil stems from the left hip to the left shoulder. So if we see that coil angle, we're going to draw this in red. We see that the left shoulder with the left hip versus the left shoulder with the left hip, we can see that that angle on the right side is a little bit more, but that also stems to the shoulder tilt. Now, shoulder tilt you can really tell from the down the line, but here you can definitely see that left shoulder is much lower on the right side than on the left side, and this helps set the hand position. So if we look at the top of the swing with the hand positions, we see a hand height that is much higher than Hogan's on the left side because of the shoulder tilt number. Now, it doesn't stop there. What are we going to look for next is the angle that the wrists are set at, because the club, you can see, is in somewhat the same position in terms of its angle, but how is it set related to the wrists due to the lack of turn for Mr. Hogan? So we see that the angle on the right side is 100 degrees. The angle on the left side is 55 degrees. So we see a 45-degree difference in angles. Now, do keep in mind, I do realize that these are 2 different videos, 2 different angles. They're not exactly the same. And also the fact that a lower arm position can give a slight optical illusion of an increased angle, but we can still see that there is a big enough difference to show you some cause and effect. So let's take the difference. We have 16 degrees of difference of Thompson on the right side versus well over 40 on the left side. So let's recreate where Hogan should be if he had the same wrist relationship to the shoulder turn that Thompson has. So we're going to minus 16 degrees. So we're looking for a 73 degree wrist angle. And there in the yellow line is the 73 degree wrist angle. So we can see based on this, we have a little bit of extra room that Hogan has to now time down to impact. Now, as we carry this angle down to this position, they're pretty close for government work. We can start to look at a couple comparisons. We can see that Hogan's right elbow is more tucked to his side versus Thompson is straightening out. Now, think about why this is. At the top of the swing, we saw Hogan's left shoulder much higher than Thompson's. Now, when your left shoulder is higher, as you transition, it's going to be much easier for that right shoulder to dip more down naturally because it's lower than it would be for somebody like Thompson because his shoulder tilt was more excessive. So what happens now? Let's look at the hand height at this position. We're going to look at where the hands are in relation to Hogan's body. It's going right over his upper thigh versus the hands to Thompson's body. We can see it's over the mid thigh, working its way closer to the knee. Now, why is that? Because when you are steeper, you can get things to be straighter because there is more room. And we can see the straightness of his triangle and how it's more connected to the center of his swing circle. We see Hogan's is more connected to the right side of his shoulder because it is stuck on that right side. But he needed to do this because of his left shoulder tilting, which was not as extreme as Thompson on the right side. So let's do this. Let's look at Thompson first and figure out his angle retention when his arm is in this position. And we can see how much he has lost. So he's lost 9 degrees of angles. Now let's back it up to where that same arm position is for Hogan. We're going to try and be as fair as we can here. That looks about the same angle and we have 69 degrees. They're both starting to get the club out in front of them by losing some degrees. So one is pointing behind the golf ball. The other one is pointing ahead of the golf ball. And this is key because something has to give. We can see the one on the right side, if he just continues on that path, you are definitely slamming that club into the ground after the golf ball. The one on the left side, you're slamming the golf club into the ground before the golf ball. And let's just take a look at the hand height. This is the final line we're going to draw for here. We're going to draw it in orange. So let's draw a hand height. And you can see that goes right through Hogan's belt buckle. And let's go down to where Thompson is. And this one is a little bit lower than the belt buckle. So obviously leg length might have to do with this. Torso length might have to do with this. Arm length might have to do with this. So that's another individualized thing that we have to think about when we're trying to copy swings, which I don't think anybody should copy a swing. And now let's figure out, why do we have that line a little bit higher than Hogan? Well, remember, we go back to the tilting at the top of the swing. Hogan's tilt was not as extreme as Thompson's tilt. Now, when your tilting is not as extreme, your transition, your right shoulder can drop down quicker and sooner, which causes a compression on this right side. Now, when you compress the right side, things get shorter to each other because you're compressing this side. This side gets longer. So when that happens, something has to give. Okay, so we know we have a swing now with Hogan that is connected to that right side quicker because of his shoulder tilt. Now, what do you think will happen because of that compression on the right side, where the right side is compressing down, in essence will also change his tilt to be slightly more up? This will also cause a secondary reaction for his arms. His arms are going to bottom out a little bit closer than Thompson on the right side because of that compression, and as a result, will send the path of his hands a little bit higher. So I want you to look at the left side of the screen. I want you to watch Hogan's path of his hand. Watch how the path from this point on works its way up. Now it's working its way up because of that compression on the right side, where from the right side of the screen we can see the hands work its way down and then they go up after he strikes the golf ball. So what does that mean? When the hands are working up, something has to adjust to allow his hands to actually move down while they also move up. And what is that? That is the knees. So watch that right knee and watch how it starts to bend inward, which allows his whole body to get closer to the ground to counteract his hands moving up. So we see that right knee fold down. And you see that little frame there from there to there. Look at that right knee action. It's moving down. Where Thompson on the right side is not necessarily moving down. He is just moving forward and his knees actually go up as he strikes a golf ball. And because he set his wrists a little further, Hogan now has to release it a little bit sooner, so the speed of his hands slowed down significantly in the impact zone, because once you release all that stored up energy on this hinge, your hand speed will actually slow down while you transfer the energy. And because Thompson had less wrist set at the top, because of more shoulder turn, he doesn't have to fire his wrists as soon as Hogan, and with that comes the increased advantage of keeping your hand speed relative to your tilting of your shoulders. And he has to tilt because of the extra tilt on the top of his swing, which then allows his hand speeds to keep up. Let's go a couple frames after impact and we can start to see a little bit of a different look here. And if we redraw these lines with the triangle check, we'll see that Hogan is probably caught up to the center, which is beautiful, and that's what he did so well. And that came from hitting tons of golf balls to time that extra little bit of motion. And the one on the right, we see that increase of tilt. The hands are still out in front of the chest, and the chest speed and the hand speed will be the same following impact. And we can see here is a really good indication of that. So let's redraw those lines now. Look how tight the arms are for Hogan versus the arms are extending outward for Thompson on the right side. These are only one or two things that you can see start a chain reaction, and I can make this video go on for much longer and more confusing if you're not confused already. But I hope that helps you recognize why you should not bother trying to emulate anybody. You can definitely read about their swing philosophies. You can definitely learn of how the golf swing works for certain people, but even they don't know how it worked for themselves, because Hogan said he had a calm right knee, and we can see that right knee is flailing like a fish. So I hope that helps you. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought. But other than that, have a great day, everybody. Fairways and greens.